Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Colleen Scholl. She is an executive in the architecture, engineering, and environmental services sector. I actually heard her speak on another podcast, so I was really keen to have her as a guest on this one. I have a bunch of questions for her, including her choice to pursue engineering, her preparation for the work she does now, and employee expectations. I'll probably also ask her some public speaking questions too, since that's always the whole goal of this whole podcast. So, welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Colleen.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk with you today.
Wonderful. So, from the research I did on you, I saw that you studied mechanical engineering. What was the motivation to study that?
Well, it was kind of a long path to get there. I actually started out studying electrical engineering right out of college, and well, I didn't really take a very traditional path to my engineering degree. I first started out of high school, as I mentioned, studying electrical engineering, and I was working while going to school, and it didn't work out so well. So I dropped out of school and I got a job in a power plant. I was working as a power plant operator in a small coal-fired power plant, and I ended up going back to school to study mechanical engineering. Just seemed to align more with what I was interested in doing, and electrical engineering didn't fit with my ability to see things. It was a little bit more um, abstract, and I wasn't kind of getting it. Mechanical had a little bit more of this physical, the ability to see and feel things, and I think that fit a little bit better with my tendencies and my abilities.
Okay, but I also saw that you didn't just stop with a bachelor's degree, you got a master's degree and an MBA. So, what was the motivation to get those degrees?
Well, while I was working in the power plant, I got really involved with the hands-on type of the power industry. And while I was working at the plant, I started doing power plant chemistry. So working in the lab, allowing me to go back to school and get my engineering degree. And while I was working in the lab, I got to work with all the water treatment systems within the power plant. So the raw water treatment system that made the water for the power plant, the demineralization system that made the water that turned the steam to run the power plant. So I got to explore all these different water treatment systems within the facility. So once I got my undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering, I kept being really interested in the water treatment systems. And that really led me to want to go back and explore more of that in a master's capability. So I went back to school and got a master's in water resources and environmental engineering to learn a little bit more about the theory behind a lot of the practical experience that I had while I was working in the power plant, because it's just something that I really enjoyed doing, and I wanted to do more of it in my career as I kept going on and on.
Okay, and then, but I also saw you got an MBA too. Is that right?
I did. I did. I seem to find myself being one of those people who keep, like, learning and keep, like, wanting to learn more and more. I think I'd be a perpetual student. I think if I could afford it, I'd want to keep going to school all the time. My husband jokes with me that, if he could afford it, I would just stay in school my entire life. Yeah, so as my career kept progressing, I found myself doing more business things. I got involved with the Society of Women Engineers. It's been a part of my life, um, as I've gone through my career. And I started doing a lot of things with the Society of Women Engineers, moving up through their organization. I spent some time on their board of directors, and that kind of progressed with my career in my professional life as well. And I started getting involved with SWE and in my professional life on the business side, learning more about how the business works. And I hate, not doing things and not really knowing the theory behind what I'm doing. So I wanted to learn about kind of the accounting, how the books worked, how, you just how the business side of things ran. So that encouraged me to go back and get an MBA, because as I'm doing things, I really want to know the theory behind it, the meaning, the why I'm doing stuff, and kind of put some education behind the practical knowledge that I'm gaining. So that's why I really went back and got an MBA. And It was very different for me, and I found getting my MBA to be a bigger struggle than getting my engineering degree because made me think in a totally different way than I had for my engineering degrees. It was fulfilling, but in a very different way, and it really made me think differently and exercise a different part of my brain.
When you say that you value education and learning, I don't doubt it because you got a bachelor's, you got a master's, you got an MBA, and I from the research I did on you, I saw you have a bunch of certifications too. So when it comes to those certificates that you got, what was the motivation to get those?
I like I said, I just like to keep learning. If you look at my office here that I'm sitting in, I've got a big pile of books that sits on my desk here that I keep reading. I just love to learn. I love to read. I think when I was a child, my mom gave me this love of learning and this love of reading. Um, she she took us to the library when we were children. She always made sure we had plenty of books around, and she just instilled in us as children this love of learning, whether it was, a fantasy land that we engaged ourselves in through fiction, or it was learning about real life people through biographies, or it was learning something in science. She just really instilled in my sister and I growing up this love of learning and gaining more knowledge. And I think I've kept that. And luckily, I think I've kept that with me throughout my entire life. And that's kind of really fueled my passion to keep learning more and just whether it's certifications or just reading things from books or learning more through the internet. I'm really lucky that she instilled in that in me when I was a young child.
So when is the PhD gonna happen?
I keep joking with my husband that one of these days I'm gonna just go back and get my PhD. I've always joked that that's gonna be my retirement gig when I stop working or when I go to a part-time work. I'm gonna go back and get my PhD so I can be Dr. Scholl. If you grew up in the '70s, you kind of would understand that joke, the Dr. Scholl shoes that used to be when we were children.
For sure, absolutely. So I'm curious, Colleen, when it comes to the work that you do now, how did your previous roles prepare you for the work you do now?
So I never believed that I would, or I never thought that I would be where I am now. I've never been one to really plot a career or plan where my next step was going to be. I've always thought that, you do the best in the job you have and you keep yourself open to opportunity. And the next great opportunity, you just keep your eyes open, and the next great opportunity somehow, I don't know, not that it magically appears, but opportunity seems to find you, or you see it comes just by doing the best at what you're doing in the role you currently have. um, I've built a lot of my career being very present in the roles that I've had. I started my career, as I mentioned, I dropped out of school and I went into operations in a power plant. And when I was very young and I did that, I thought for me that my career was going to be stagnated and was, kind of for many ways the end of my career. It was a major roadblock and I was going to be stuck here. I was never going to progress again. And I went into a little bit of a depression, and I was very sad for a while. And some of the gentlemen that I worked with as in operations encouraged me to go back to school and get that engineering degree. And when I look back at it now, to me, that was the best thing that I did in many ways, was to get that hands-on experience. So I've always valued that hands-on experience throughout the course of my career. Um, and I've always made sure to try and get it and try to encourage the people I work with to get that hands-on experience. So I went from operations into engineering design roles. I went from working in a power plant to then designing power plants. But I couldn't get away from that love of actually seeing the things that I've designed um, either being built or running or troubleshooting them. Because as I designed them, I wanted to go back to the field and either build them or troubleshoot them or work on them in the field. So much of my career was this going back and forth from designing something to going out in the field and taking on either a couple weeks construction assignment, or at one point I took a couple years construction assignment and went out to the field, or going back for a couple weeks to do troubleshooting and commissioning, and kind of doing this little jump and back and forth from the office to the field on a regular basis. When I joined my current company, HDR, about 12 years ago, I moved into more of a consulting role. But I think everything that I did out in the field, and really working not just in the office in the design, but really seeing my designs come to life, gave me a lot of um, real world experience with everything that I learned from what could go wrong, gave me the experience to really take on the roles that I have today, which is I'm the enterprise risk director for our firm now. And I think all that real world experience and that time in the field has given me the information, or the real life troubleshooting experience that I have to really take on the role that I have today.
Yeah, I totally see that. And when it comes to your work life up from now, even from before, when it comes to these opportunities, are these opportunities that you sought out, or are they ones that kind of came to you?
I think it's a little bit of both. Um, in many ways, I saw things. I would tell people that I wanted to do certain things. So, as I mentioned, I took a long-term construction assignment, and I had wanted to do this long-term assignment for a little while, and I saw a project that there was an opportunity coming, and I joked that, I told people that I was going on this assignment before the assignment even materialized. I was telling people that I wanted to go to this project. I wanted to go to site. I wanted to do this project. And I put it out there. I kept telling people that I wanted to do this. I wanted to do this. And I wanted to make sure that I went. And I just kept talking about it, and kept talking about it to make sure that my name was in the conversation when it opened up. And by the time that, I think I was talking about it a year and a half before the opportunity even came open. And when it finally came open, people said to me, "Oh, Colleen, are you going to go to this project? You're going to put your name in for it." So my name was already in the conversation after I'd been talking about it for so long. So I think you have to put it out there in the atmosphere that you're open to these things, or you're interested in this type of role. Too many times, especially women, we sit back and we think that the good work we're going to do is going to be recognized by people, and they're going to come to us. I think you have to put out there in the atmosphere, to your network, to people to your sponsors, that you're interested in these types of things, even if you're not sure exactly what it is. But you're interested in maybe something in business development, or you're interested in even just exploring something new. You have to put it out there to your network, and then people will think of you when these opportunities come up.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that, Colleen, especially when it comes to people who just think that if they do their job well, then opportunities will come. But a lot of times we got to be our best self advocate, and not just assume that people are even paying attention to what we're doing. I mean, they're probably concerned with what they're doing. So if we want them to be concerned with what we're doing, we need to tell them, be concerned with what I'm doing. And I want to be eligible for these opportunities as well. So I definitely take your point there. So I'm curious, when it comes to being in a working environment, what do you think is reasonable for employees to expect from their employers?
Oh, wow, that's a tough question. What do you mean, expect?
I was reading a post recently on LinkedIn, and it was about a woman that was talking about various courses or that she wanted to develop for her audience. And I thought that before she develops any type of course, perhaps the first thing she should think about is what should people even expect from their employers. And once you have a question, once you have the answer to that, that can go in many different directions, and you could develop the courses based on those various directions. So I'm always curious, and then also I'm always curious as to when people even enter working environments coming out of school, do their expectations match up with what is actually the job or what exactly is in the work environment?
I think each work environment is different. And I think when you're interviewing for a job, you have to remember that they're not only interviewing you to see if you're a fit for a job, you're interviewing them to see if they are a fit for you. You have to remember it's a two-way street. You're interviewing to see if, you know, it's a two-way audition. So you have to make sure that you want to be there and that the things that they are providing, the culture of that organization, what they offer for you is just as much what you want to get out of it as much as what you're providing to them is what they want. So it's a two-way street. And I think too many times people don't realize that when they go into the interview process, that it is a two-way audition. And a lot of times we look at, oh, okay, I want a job, I want this job, it's a great pay, the benefits look great, but we forget that, we have to make sure that this is what each organization has a different culture. Each organization has a different offering. You have to make sure that what they are offering is what you want as well. So when you are setting your expectations, I think you have to go in and look at it both ways because organizations are different. Publicly traded companies, employee-owned companies, they all have a different culture. And I think employees have to consider that and look at that carefully when they are selecting where they want to work and what they want to spend their day doing and what type of organization they want to be a part of.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And just being able to match whatever you expect with what the company is willing to provide, I think that's important too. I mean, right now, there's a big push for flexibility. There's a lot of during the pandemic, a lot of people were working from home, and now there's many companies that are asking their employees to come back to the office, and many still want to work from home. And so, what's an organization to do? I guess then you got to ask that question of yourself again. What do I expect? The expectation that I get that flexibility to work from home? Can that match up with what the organization is now asking me to do? And if not, well, I guess it's time to update your LinkedIn profile.
Well, and depending on what type of work you're doing, I mean, it depends what you're going to be doing. I mean, if you're working in a manufacturing environment, you're going to be on a shop floor or you're going to be at a shop. If you're going to be in a job that enables you to work remote, where you're more of an individual contributor, you may be able to have more flexibility in working remote. It just depends on what type of work you're looking for as well. So you have to line up your expectations with what the job is and what the firm does as well. So you, know, you, there's a lot of components at play, and it's not a one size fits all, and every firm can do the same type of thing. So you have to think about it. You really have to make sure it's a two-way street when you're doing that interview process.
When I first started this podcast and YouTube channel, Colleen, it was based on my own struggles having to give presentations in front of management, working as an engineer. I had to do so on a monthly basis. Those first few presentations were rough at best. I definitely got better at it. I definitely got better at it over time. And then after that, when I started this whole thing, I really wanted to hear from other people to see, well, maybe did they struggle as much as I did? So I'm curious when it comes to speaking in front of other people. Is that something you've always been good at? And if not, what did you do to get better at it?
Oh my, it was absolutely not something I was ever very good at when I was younger. I was a little bit on the nerdy side when I was younger. I was a little bit more introverted when I was younger, and I was definitely not very good at it. Probably about, oh my God, about 20 years ago now, I was working at a company and it became actually part of my job, where there was an expectation that you did technical presentations. I was working as part of a team where we were part of what I called technical staff. So our group was technical staff for um, Power Business Group, and we worked on the water and wastewater treatment systems for all the power projects. And there was an expectation that you presented to industry on the different projects that the company worked on and the different water and wastewater treatment systems. And I had never presented before in my life, and I was deathly afraid to ever even try it. I did not wanna do it. I had an older gentleman who I worked with who was really pushing me to do it and really encouraging me to do it, and I was really afraid. What I learned from him was, first of all, preparation is key. I learned to, first of all, write out. I started writing out on note cards my entire presentation, and I know that was not a good way to do it, and I started slimming down from then. I learned to practice. What I do now is I script out a lot of my presentation and I practice it. I talk to my steering wheel. I talk to my car. That is actually my way of doing it, is to sit in the car and drive and practice talking to the car. And I make little notes when I stop, but my brain seems to be really, really good when I'm actually driving because I can think and not, I don't know why, but I shut the radio off and the car is like my safe space to talk, and I talk to the car. But I've learned that preparation is key, and I learned to at least put in as much time, probably 3 to 4 times as much practice time as the presentation length is. So if I'm presenting like a 20-minute presentation, I've gotta practice probably at least an hour to an hour and a half of real solid practice time going over and going over the presentation. I write myself out the presentation of pretty much what I wanna say. Then I rewrite it as bullet points, and then I pretty much throw the cards away and I hope for the best. But I wanna make sure that I really know my subject matter. Then the last thing I always do, and I started this when I was very young, and I make sure that I do this with all of my younger engineers when I teach them to do a presentation, is I do a dry run in front of people who are going to scare me. My first dry run was done in front of my boss, and I try to make my young engineers do this in front of their boss. Um, I get in front of people who are going to scare me, who are going to question me, who are going to ask me the tough questions on my presentation so I can work those out ahead of time. But I get up and I do a full dry run, the full presentation like I'm going to do it. I have people ask me tough questions like somebody from the audience would be. So I know what it's going to feel like when I actually do that presentation. And I found that and getting that feedback is probably the best thing that I can do, um, because we all need good constructive feedback, right?
Oh, 100%. Do you ever get nervous before a presentation? And if so, how do you deal with your nerves?
I absolutely still get nervous every single time before every presentation. And I don't know, I have a little walk-up song that I play on my headset. I play Katy Perry's "Roar" on my headset, and I put it in there, and I just kinda psych myself up. I never look at my cards again. The night before is the last time I look at my presentation because I don't wanna look at it again, but I put my little headset in and I play Katy Perry's "Roar" to give myself this little, I don't know, it's kinda like my walk-up song like you have at a baseball game, just to make myself pump myself up and give me a little bit of confidence before I go up there. I try not to
Okay.
think about it before I go up there.
Katy Perry roar. All right, definitely something to keep in mind. That's wonderful. I should get up a walk up song. I haven't even thought about that. We'll go through my playlist. See what's happening. Okay, so for the people who are watching or listening to our conversation, Colleen, and they're technical people, and if you were to offer them a piece of advice as to why, or a reason as to why they would want to improve at giving presentations or public speaking generally, communicating with others, what would it be?
I think the most important thing we can do as technical professionals is to learn how to communicate our expertise. We can do calculations and come up with great ideas all day long, but until we become experts at communicating them to the world, we aren't we aren't really those experts. We need to get our information out there and we need to learn to be comfortable at doing it. And that's probably the biggest struggle that we have. And it's something that they don't teach us really well, I think, in school. And So I think that's probably the most important thing, is teach technical professionals how to be really good communicators, because that's when we sell our services the best. That's when we that's when we really excel in what we do, is by being able to communicate really how awesome our ideas are and how amazing the things are that we are coming up with, and the solutions that we are providing for our clients, for the world, for whomever we are coming up with them for.
Yeah. And when you were speaking, Colleen, it actually reminded me of a conference I went to last summer. One of the speakers was a business development person, and the majority of people in the audience were engineers. And afterwards, this business development person got a whole lot of technical questions that he couldn't answer. Felt kind of bad. I felt kind of bad for him because it was just one after another. But luckily, there were a couple of engineers from his company in the audience, and they answered the questions from their seats. Made me think, why didn't one of them give the presentation? I guess they didn't have the confidence to or comfortable doing it. But I mean, it would have made way more sense for one of them to do it.
Exactly, I see that too often. I see the project manager or the business development person or the marketing person up there giving the presentation, and the technical professionals sitting in the audience, when they would be the ones who are better suited to be telling the story of this amazing project or this amazing, technical solution that they came up with, because it's their solution, it's their story. But many times they're not the ones who are confident enough to do that, but they are the ones who are the experts truly on it, and I wish more of them would have the confidence to tell their story.
Yeah, 100%. This has been a great conversation, Colleen. Thank you so much for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
Uh, you can contact me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile is, Colleen Scholl 89. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can, check out my email, colleensscholl@hdr.com.
Excellent. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Colleen.
Thank you.